Hey guys, this is the second part of the previous video, January 16th, on the submissives and of course my Frenemy Vejvoda. So I think you know the area, the little harbor where I used to hang out with my father, and now when I recall my best memories from childhood happened with my father, not with my mother. With her was always this feeling of heaviness you typically feel around predator, and we are talking about narcissistic personality. So about the submissives, the people who are carved into this crippled versions of humans by the narcissist, and that essentially that evil which is controlling the planet. So this is something what many of us noticed. These submissives, they actually hate our type, right? And I'll try now to reflect that behavior. So the reasons why they hate us is because we are reminding them on what they could be or what they lost, the stamina, the spine, the inner compass. And nothing is more hurtful to somebody who is mind controlled than that notion that he is mind controlled. Because, you know, I think everybody at one point worked in the corporation, and these memories are coming from me, from the Image Corporation, which is concessionary on cruiser ships, um, bases in Miami. Bosses are David's brothers, Jewish from United Kingdom, and they stationed on Grand Cayman, but office is in Miami. So every once in a while we would have new politics coming from above, and this politics would typically be some bullshit, some bureaucratic bullshit, some politically correct bullshit, some basically repressive bullshit. Or as one manager liked to say, don't rejoice when shit is hitting me, because we are pyramid. If it hits me, eventually it will roll down on all of you. He was a blonde English and he was a cool guy. I forgot his name. It was a long time ago. So what is happening with these guys is, when some bullshit is coming, first you're accepting this bullshit from outside, and then because every time you feel like a shit when you need to fake, you start to adjust yourself from the inside. And this is the real process of submission, the real process of mind control. And then when somebody comes to you and reflects that, you feel anger. You immediately feel this incredible frustration and anger released on him, because this is the guy who is now, well, you don't understand that rationally when that is going on, of course. It's simply emotional, because mind control is emotional. And you will notice that by the people who are bewitched by the narcissist, when you try to wake them up, they will react incredibly violently. Okay, so now one digression. This is the sketch of the submarine. It's I think one of the first types of submarines which been built. It's from the year 1914 till 1921, and it was built in that shipyard where my father used to work. Uh, it was done for the scientific purposes. 13 meters by 2 meters and so on. So, and something like this would be even cool today. So this is something what we need to know, and we are facing with that. And you can't wake up the dead. Dead are sleeping, and eventually they're gonna wake up themselves. And there is no doubt that this mass is gonna wake up eventually, and they're gonna figure out that all of it, all of the things we know, the chemtrails, the geoengineering, the corruption, the stolen children en masses, and who's behind that, and etc. But the prison is already set, and when they wake up, I'm afraid it's gonna be too late, guys. I still believe in victory, but more I see that everything is happening as reptilian Illuminati psychopaths had planned. So speaking about that, my frenemy Vejvoda. See, frenemy is the worst kind of enemy you can have, and it's the worst kind of friend you can have. It's basically the worst possible situation. A frenemy is somebody who's outwardly a friend to you, but actually hates you and is always trying to undermine you. So, I'll go like, uh, well, I think I'll just follow my flow of thoughts instead of timeline. So, Vejvoda, he's one person when we are one on one. He is completely different person if we are in a group of typically male group or one or two older females inside, and he's 100% 180 degrees different person than one on one when young females are around. Then he's openly hostile, like insulting and so on. So when we're alone, he's incredibly sweet, he's incredibly nice, he's incredibly helpful. When we are in a group of people, he will immediately go, Kruni, moramo platiti cugo, on nema para, znate, on ne radi. Always this line. Oh, we have to play drink for Kruno. Kruno is not working, he's broke. And if young females are around, he's gonna openly shout at me and tell me to fuck off, etc. That happened more than a few times, I shit you not. And I was like, always, before I figured out who he was, and I'll come to that, I was like, what the fuck? I mean, you know, you're shocked with the behavior because rationally speaking and logic doesn't really apply if you don't have all information to decide logically. I was like, what's wrong with him? I mean, the girl is beautiful, but he's not gonna fuck her, he's old. I'm not gonna fuck her, I'm fat and I'm broke. So what's the competition all about? Like, no, nobody's gonna fuck her, and nobody's gonna have any romantic moment with her. Like, forget about it. Like, what's happening with you? And then I thought, okay, maybe he's just an old guy, and maybe he's following some, basically territorial mating impulses without rationalization. And this was my way of, okay, I get it. I can live with that. That's his minus. That's like, nobody's perfect. I'm poor. He has these territorial issues. But we're still friends. But after I figured it out that he's born in Illuminati, beyond a doubt, and I'll come to that. And after I figured out the game of eugenics and the game of mating and who's allowed to mate and who's not allowed to mate. Now, of course, the beast, the voice inside of him, the super ego, which is incredibly demonic and of course incredibly judgmental. And every born in Illuminati has this super ego inside of him. Hi guys. And oh, bad looks. Yeah, Croatian middle class. and he has this incredibly judgmental ego. And you remember that group which was laughing loudly? Okay, maybe just a feeling, just a hunch. So that will immediately, basically, take over as a born-in member, and he's gonna act accordingly. And then you're gonna see the holes in the fakery which been placed upon your senses. So who is he? The guy from 2 videos from before, where it says having a cup of coffee with born in Illuminati member. That's the guy. So the guy, he was born in 1939 in Paris. His parents were communists who've been fighting in the Spanish Civil War, and then they, of course, escaped to France after they lost the war there, and he was born. And then Second World War started, and his mother was immediately killed by some freak accident by Italian officer. And later on, of course, his father was commissar in the communist army. It's also a little bit play of word. Co means like, and messar means butcher. And these people been actually sending people to be butchered. So, communist commissar. And in 1945, his father was Minister of Foreign Affairs. 1945, when communists took power in Yugoslavia, and when hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people been murdered in a cold blood, some even walled inside shafts alive. Horrible stories been happening. His father was not 0.1 of the elite, but 0.1 of 0.1 of the elite. And Um, if this is not something indicative to you, it's time to stop video and reflect on what I just said. Later on, he was ambassador in London, in Rio de Janeiro, in Rome, and I think Prague as well. He's ethnic Czech. His family names basically means duke or army leader. Vejvoda in Czech language means voivoda. In Serbian language, it's we don't use this term here, but voj means war, and voditi means leading. So that's what it is. And they're gonna have these indicative names. Guy is well off. He owns at least two houses. Every single one talking about hundreds upon thousands of euros. He was bragging that the market value of one is 500,000 euros. So he's a gentleman of means. And how we met, he was my professor at university. He was at the time professor at two universities, pulling above average wages on every single one of them for super easy work. And we became friends. He was an interesting guy, typical archetype of intellectual, the ponytail, the beard. He's actually even wearing a skirt, which was cool. And guy who was studying in Scotland, in the United States, back in the 60s. And the guy, you know what that means, guys. Come on, people couldn't leave Yugoslavia in the 60s legally, and he was traveling the world, and etc. So elite. So placed here as somebody to basically control creative processes and to start trends, which later on gonna be monitored. And he was the first guy who started to talk about ecology in 1960s, when nobody knew a jack shit what ecologia is. He introduced that word in this city, and this is like third largest city in Croatia. Hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of kids been growing up, molded under his influence in a couple of universities. One was Touristic Management University, another one was Art, Academy of Fine Arts. And so my targeting is actually connected with this guy. He started lectures about conspiracy, and I was guy who was, after I got introduced to the topic through him, I was the guy who was setting up the program, David Icke, Alex Jones at that time, and usual disinformation agents, which all, by the way, were introduced to me from him. And this is when targeted started in my life. And just to digress, after I came to Croatia from Southeast Asia, I didn't want to cooperate with him after I figured out who is who. And but there was absolutely no way to get area for lessons. It was absolutely impossible. All doors closed. All these nice people, which been nice to me, because he introduced me to them. The NGO people who are actually incredibly wealthy, and who have all these nice big apartments with salas in Rijeka center, and projectors and computers, and the furniture, and thousands upon thousands of euros per month to spend from Soros, from Croatian state, from Norwegian embassy, and the list. They've been like, yeah, sure, Kurno, yeah, we'll be in touch, and after that, no more contact. So now when we met, he of course offered me immediately the cooperation for a lecture about Southeast Asia and everything. And basically, if something is about to happen, it must go through him. That's how this network is. That they're like forming 2, maybe even 3% of the humanity. Of course, it varies from region to region, but they are everywhere. I'm talking about born in. And if you're new to this channel, Fritz Springmeier, read Fritz Springmeier, and not the 13 bloodlines, but the Illuminati formula, how to create mind control slaves. Oh, by the way, yeah, that's the bunker as well. So whole area is full of Italian bunkers. How they turn your family against you, was filmed here. So that was update about this incident. Apart from one thing, I'll tell you one thing. My intuition was telling me, Kruno, don't have a coffee with this guy. And when I was having coffee with him, I could sense that he's sucking my energy like a black hole. And when I came home, when I tried to sleep that night, I was bombarded by the suicidal images, exactly what I explained in that video, suicidal programming loop, etc. Guys, I can't do links. I'm only having a smartphone at this point. You know, not very popular channel. That's simply how it is. And of course, it was all coming from the outer source. If you're close to the born in Illuminati, you are immediately close to the core of the metaphysical evil. And that's simply how it is. And of course they're gonna affect you badly. So my best intuitive guess is not to bother with contact with him, because it's always damaging. It's like it's like a beautiful girl falling in love with a psychopath, because psychopath is so cool and he has so much money and so many connections, and her life gonna be beautiful. And then 5 or 10 years down the road, she's just what, how when vampire sucks the whole blood from a target, right? You just a dry doll. Well, this is basically hanging out with the Illuminati. When I was doing these lessons, um, and also I remember like Swali speaks and so on. Back then I could not feel vibes. This was before monastery. In monastery, things really sharpened for me, and I have to say my energy also went down from that monastic period, because I live in a much unhealthier environment. I live with narcissistic mother inside the building, and not much contact with the nature, and less prana, less ability to see things. But before was even worse, because I was like really gaslighted, and I didn't know even what a narcissism is. I knew very little, to be honest. Many things happened since 2012. I can assure you that. So I would make a lesson, and I would immediately feel completely energy drained. And when you close to Illuminati, good luck with you if you can like play with the shield and this and the light. But in reality, they always manage to suck your energy, because something far more powerful than you is working through you. And I would always be energy drained, and I would always have migraine, and I would always have migraine next day. And Vejvoda was always fine. He was never energy drained. He was always, you know, always energy high. And guy was born in 1939. Guy has what, 81 years now. He's gonna have 81 years in July. Now go figure that. He's walking fast, he's thinking fast. And if you wonder how, well, a, when energy is sucked, it's sucked through him, he gets a part of it. B, evil is maintaining its machines. And C, adrenochrome. If I'm, I mean, the amount of shit you hear from these guys when they loosen up, like, oh, we've been standing on a ritual 2 hours, and you have to stand firmly 2 hours, and even if rain is pouring, and but you have to maintain the fire, and just incredible NLP thing. And of course he was. Now I just gonna finish with this, what he was talking about. He said, hey, Kruno, Marin? And Marin is a guy who's incredibly similar to me, or me to him. An intelligent guy who was translating books. He's the only Croat that I know of that was also Buddhist monk. He was ordained as a Buddhist monk in the early 1980s in Sri Lanka. I don't know how old was the guy. I think that he was maybe 20 years older than I am, so now he would be maybe in the mid 60s. And he said Marin came here to look for a job. He was completely lost. Something was wrong with him. I sent him to sleep in my ex-wife's apartment. She said that he was following her to the toilet, acting weirdly. Then we tried to put him in the mental institution, as he figured that out, and he ran away. Do you see the NLP thing, right, going on? And the second thing is, oh, what was her name? Ira. And Ira, well, Ira is actually a very beautiful girl. Not girl anymore. I think she's like 2 3 years younger than I am. She was beautiful when young. Huge ego, very intelligent, but ego bigger than mountain. And Ira is totally schizophrenic. I said, "What's going on?" And like she believes that some Masons are following her, and I like, "What the fuck?" And yeah. She's like into all that thing. She believes that Masons are following her. She's schizophrenic, and I'm like, okay, now I'm getting the pattern. And you, of course, if you TI, you also get the pattern. And this is basically how these people, um, the smear campaign. That's what they do. They invite somebody one on one on coffee, then they gonna start smearing some targets, and Marin died, right? Ira is schizophrenic. She believes that she's targeted, etc., etc. So yeah, with this I gonna, and of course after finishing coffee with me, he's gonna approach maybe 10, 15 other people which we knew, and then he's gonna go, Kruno is crazy, Kruno said this, Kruno said that, blah blah blah. So frenemy. Be aware of the frenemies. They are the worst kind of enemies you can have. If you have a friend who's not loyal to you, who's one person when you're alone, another person in a group, especially a third person when people of opposite sex are there and like really hostile towards you, my friend, run away. Don't do what I've done. Don't spend the years with this guy because he's just gonna poison you. And yeah, with this I finish my thought. Thank you for hanging out. This was very long video, but it's a it's a talk measly. It's a flow of thoughts, guys. That's what it is. Okay, leave me your comments. I know that not many people are watching this. Of course, YouTube is openly about not advertising channels like this which can be advertised, and of course now they even put a law where they actually gonna simply close channels which can't be advertised because it's a waste of processing space for them. So we're gonna hang out here as long as it's possible. It's obviously that numbers of views are dropping from those reasons I said, and you already know that, guys. Be safe, be vigilant, don't be paranoid. Not everybody around you is working for the CIA, but they are around. Don't jump to the conclusions, but trust your intuition. Observe the pattern, observe loyalty, reward loyalty with loyalty, and observe the backstabbing. I'm actually allergic to the backstabbing. I have issue with that, I'll admit that.